In Resident Evil 3, after Jill reaches the clock tower, she manages to send out a distress signal to escape Raccoon City. But unfortunately, the Nemesis sees the chopper headed their way and destroys it before it lands. And to make matters worse, the moment he steps down to face off against Jill, she quickly pulls out her weapon, but the Nemesis reacts quicker and uses one of his tentacles to not only break through her weapon, but also infect her in the process. In the game, she still has enough strength in her to fight, but in the manhwa, she instantly begins feeling weak. But luckily, Carlos shows up in time to protect her. Carlos uses his assault rifle to try and kill the Nemesis, and the Nemesis uses his rocket launcher to get rid of Carlos. He fires a missile at his direction, but Carlos manages to barely dodge it and continue firing as many rounds as possible. He aims directly at the rocket launcher and lands a few hits, completely destroying the rocket launcher that was loaded, and now the Nemesis is on fire. But it still refuses to go down, so Jill uses her grenade launcher that's loaded with freezing rounds and shoots the Nemesis from behind, leaving him to freeze and burn at the same time. This gives Carlos and Jill the perfect opportunity to escape before he breaks free. Carlos picks her up and they manage to escape on time. The Nemesis breaks free and continues a search for them. We then see that Carlos brought Jill into the Clock Tower Chapel so she can rest while he searches for the cure for Jill. In the game, this is where you take control of Carlos and search for the cure through the hospital nearby. But while he searches for the cure, Jill begins to have a surreal dream, and she finds herself back at the Spencer mansion. She knows that a moment ago she was just at the clock tower, so there's no way that this could actually be real. But she doesn't know if she's dreaming either. She walks towards the front door of the mansion, opens it, and she is suddenly attacked by Cerberus, similar to how you two can end up being attacked by Cerberus if you try to leave the mansion. But only this time, the zombie dog manages to bite Jill in her left arm. Here's where things start getting even more bizarre. The injury she just received by the Cerberus ended up appearing outside her dream. Even Carlos noticed it happen, as it turned out that he was still by her side. He quickly bandaged her injury and wonders what kind of poison makes the person bleed from their skin. Meanwhile, Jill kicked the dog away, but after Carlos treated her wound, the dog no longer attacked her. Jill continues forth, facing her fears. She moves on to the attic of the mansion, and if you remember what creature lurks in this location, then you know what Jill must face off against once again. The giant deadly snake known as Yawn appears from the shadows and prepares to attack Jill. Jill reaches for her STI Eagle, just as she does so outside her dream. Carlos sees this and removes her handgun so she doesn't hurt herself. But this affects Jill in her dream, and her magnum then disappears, leaving her defenseless against Yawn. Carlos finally decides to search for the cure that Jill needs before it's too late, but then notices that her hands are shaking. So he turns back to see what's going on, and in her dream, she's about to be eaten alive by the giant snake. Carlos looks at her hands and thinks that maybe she feels frightened without her handgun at her possession. So he trusts that she won't hurt herself and puts her handgun back on her hand. And now, the magnum that disappeared has reappeared in her hand, and she fires it at Yawn, completely destroying it. But suddenly, the floor begins to flood with water. And now Jill has to face off against another dangerous creature in another location from her past. She is now in the Arklay laboratory. She fires her weapon at the approaching shark, but all of a sudden she falls through the floor and is now submerged underwater, where the Neptune and the two smaller sharks seek to attack her once again. The Neptune closes in and Jill grabs onto its mouth, trying to prevent it from eating her, just as it did with Richard Eichen in one of his alternate deaths. She gets injured by its claws, but refuses to give up, and once again, the injury she received ended up injuring her outside her dream. As she fights off the Neptune, two zombies broke into the Clock Tower Chapel, and they begin approaching Jill as she lies in front of them without any knowledge of what's going on outside her nightmare. This time, Carlos isn't around to protect her. Things get worse as something starts breaking through the ceiling, and it is revealed to be William Birkin in his third mutation. He easily disposes of the two zombies that were about to devour her while she lied there unconscious. The G-infected William Birkin stares down at Jill Valentine, and going back to her dream, she continues to fight off Neptune and manages to kill it, including the 2 smaller sharks by its side. But she didn't kill them with firearms. She did it by devouring them herself. Jill must have known that everything she is facing off against isn't real, so there's no way that she could possibly lose against these creatures, especially when it comes to the realization that she's already dealt with them before, and she's defeated them once, and she can do it again. But seeing as she decided to tear them apart with her own teeth means that she's willing to do what it takes to kill whatever creatures get in her way, but she could also be losing her mind. After a while, her dream starts becoming even more eerie, and she continues to explore through her past. This time, she encounters Plant 42, another large creature that she had to deal with before. But before she can confront it, she starts to recover and wake up, because by now, Carlos has come back with the medicine to cure her infection, finally ending her trip from one nightmare to another. What I really found interesting to see was that once again, the art style looks amazing. You can really tell which locations are the ones shown in her dream. But what's even cooler is that we can actually see the inventory menu, which is fascinating to see in this art style. Another interesting fact is that in her dream, the moment when she was facing off against Jan, the weapon she had was a Magnum. But outside her dream, it was her STI Eagle, the handgun she uses in Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. Just like in the game, Carlos managed to reach her on time. However, just moments ago, before Carlos arrived, Jill was approached by William Birkin in his 3rd mutation, but he did not kill her. He could have finished her off, but decided not to since she was already infected, and there was no point on infecting her even further if she was already about to die. But that wasn't the only reason why he didn't kill her, as it turns out that while Jill remained in the Clock Tower Chapel, the Nemesis was still on the search for Jill and Carlos, and this was the moment he found her location. But seeing as William Birkin was there, that meant that they could finally continue with their rematch. William Birkin and the Nemesis had already fought before, but if you're wondering when it happened, we'll be taking a look at that first fight in the next Resident Evil video, because as of now, that's it for the video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if so, be sure to leave a like, share with others, and subscribe if you haven't. And if you'd like to see some extra content, or you'd like to see your name at the end of the videos, then feel free to support the channel by donating a single dollar to my Patreon. There are also additional perks for donating more than $1. The link is on the description, along with the link to my Facebook page, Tumblr, DeviantArt, and Twitter. But anyways, I'll see you all in the next video, and remember to have an awesome day.